Valorant is the next big thing, and honestly, the hype surrounding this title is practically mythic right now. I get very strong vibes reminiscent of Apex Legends, if we're being totally honest here, which makes me think the hype will die an unceremonious death in about 3 months, but who knows? That might be totally off base. Whatever the case may be, as it stands today, the Twitch viewership is off the charts. The marketing system they use to promote drops has created a feverish cult of streamer promotion, and the credentials the game is flaunting look like they might even dethrone CSGO, a long-standing monolithic figurehead in the entire industry. That's all well and good. The game has been boasting some of the best servers in history. The tick rate seems like a gift from the gaming gods. There is supposedly no way for people to cheat, so hackers won't be a problem, and it comes from Riot Games, who are known within the industry for their ability to continually develop and refine a game concept, best demonstrated by League of Legends. There is no doubt that the game looks great on paper, and the hype is growing to reflect that, but there are some issues that are now coming to light that deserve to be addressed, because if this game really does grow to the size and scope it is being projected as, these issues are going to matter. Before really diving in, big shout out to some ordinary gamers. I was not aware of this. I have not been tracking or playing Valorant, and if it were not for his quality reporting on the initial problem, I doubt that myself and many other commentators for that matter would have been talking about this until it became an actual horrific problem. Since it is now in the spotlight though, largely thanks to his quality reporting, I would like to give my opinions and analysis on the issue. The basic summary is that Valorant's anti-cheat is extremely invasive. I highly doubt that Riot Games themselves will use the problematic structure of their anti-cheat to exploit user systems. That's obviously very unlikely, but the anti-cheat to its very core resembles malware. I am no expert in back-end system design or relevant software engineering terminology. Fancy way of saying I don't know what I'm talking about on these subjects, but after investigating as best as I could, it appears that the anti-cheat system in Valorant contains a system kernel, which has the absolute highest level of access possible to your system, and that kernel initiates on startup and stays active whether or not the game is running as long as your entire system is online. This is the reason the game apparently requires a hard restart of your entire system before being able to play the beta after installation. Now, to be clear, I have not played the game personally. I've watched some streams to get one of their drops, maybe, but got really sick of having to watch particular streams I don't necessarily enjoy with the sound on, by the way, to maybe get a key drop. And it's not even a key, it's just you link your accounts together and then you maybe get the game from watching certain streamers. It's an insanely lucrative strategy to market their game from a public hype perspective, but I for one am not a fan. So saying I had got a drop and been extremely lucky, I would have installed the game, and by installing the game, I would have effectively put a non-threatening, as of right now, asterisk, rootkit on my computer, which is designed to prevent cheaters from exploiting the game's code, but could also be abused by hackers as a backdoor into my very system, just because of how the game is constructed. Again, not a technology expert in this particular capacity, so if I'm wrong about this, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm not saying it's likely to happen, I'm saying it's possible. Now, this kind of anti-cheat is by far and away more aggressive than most competitors, but to make that comparison even more obvious, all we need to do is examine the idea of a virtual machine. I won't go in depth on the technology aspect because it's outside my realm of authority, but running a virtual machine is something a lot of gamers do to protect their local operating system. And also, it is the core functionality behind systems like Shadow or GeForce Now. I used to be sponsored by Shadow, actually, and I loved their service. I thought the latency was obnoxious at times, but overall I saw a lot of value in what they offer. However, because of how aggressive Valorant's anti-cheat is, and the levels to which it invades your system and requires access, it will actually not work at all on GeForce Now or Shadow. That's not to say it won't ever in the future, but it can't right now, and that's not ideal. Here's the biggest problem though. Valorant was touted as a level playing field. I cannot actually find the literal claims made by Riot pre-beta release, but the atmosphere, an atmosphere echoed by many pro players and streamer personalities who are fed up with the rampant hacking in Modern Warfare Warzone right now, was one of security and optimism. The gist of it was, based on what Riot has revealed and advertised, Valorant won't have a hacker problem, except 2 days into the beta, it already did. It took mere hours for proof-of-concept hacks to emerge in online forums, and just a couple of days for the game to be infiltrated. And with that now becoming a focal point for the game's beta release, how long is it before the problem grows to a point of competitive equivalence to something like CSGO or Warzone? When a game is the next big thing, hackers and exploiters are going to be drawn to it just as much as the typical or casual player base. With all this in mind, why then does Valorant have the most aggressive and invasive anti-cheat imaginable? Why does the game install a a vgk.sys file that runs on startup and then remains active at all times, regardless of whether or not the game itself is running? And why is this aggressive measure being so heavily prioritized that it breaks the functionality of virtual machines to play the game? It could be possibly understood, maybe, if it actually prevented the hacking, but it doesn't. This by itself is already somewhat concerning to a great many players. For others, though, they just don't care, which is totally fine. If you do care, it's troubling to see the avenue Riot has taken. But if you don't care, just install the game and play. Totally up to you. But to go further, Riot Games is wholly owned by Tencent, which is effectively a technology arm of the Chinese government. That's a whole separate topic, the relationship between Tencent and the CCP, but ignoring that and just looking at ownership, Riot Games is 100% owned and controlled by Tencent, which puts a very necessary spotlight on what they do from a data collection perspective. For reference, Epic Games has been the subject of similar scrutiny over the past months, despite being only partially owned by Tencent, and insisting that Tim Sweeney maintains full decisive control. The spotlight for what they do with the Epic Store, why they do it, and when they do it has been picked apart thoroughly and largely contributed to the rock-bottom reputation that Epic Games has cultivated over these recent weeks and months. Applying that same scrutiny here to Riot Games, wholly owned by Tencent, using some of the most invasive anti-cheat software to ever exist in the entire industry, and it does not build confidence in the well-rounded future of Valorant. To be perfectly clear, I am not discussing gameplay, balance, or mechanical polish, not at all. Valorant could be amazing, it could be terrible. I'm not in a position to critique those aspects right now, but simply examining ownership and anti-cheat functionality, the Valorant beta is off to a very rocky start. To reiterate, I do not necessarily believe that Riot themselves will abuse this root access for some nefarious purpose, but for anyone more conspiratorial than I am, that potential certainly exists. I am more concerned about the possibility of it being exploited by third parties, and Riot has claimed that security firms thoroughly reviewed this anti-cheat software pre-beta, and that possibility is non-existent, the possibility for them to, third parties that is, to actually exploit your system because of this root access. But so too was the expectation of hackers entirely, and that didn't turn out to be very reliable. There is also unconfirmed reports, and when I say unconfirmed, I mean I have not been able to test it for myself. I don't have access to the Valorant beta, and I have not been able to verify from others I contacted about the issue with any degree of absolute certainty, but there are unconfirmed reports that the always running nature of this anti-cheat can negatively impact other games that you play, since it is active regardless of whether or not Valorant itself is running. Then, there is the issue of external audits. Riot claims that security firms reviewed their system and have given the all clear. What firms? What did they say? These records need to be public considering their anti-cheat system is being given the highest level of administrative access to an operating system that is possible to do, period. For every person, and it's in the millions, the many millions, who is playing this beta. I don't want to get too hyperbolic here and start fear-mongering, but if you boil it down to the most basic 1 or 2 sentence analysis, Valorant allows a company fully and completely owned by Chinese tech conglomerate Tencent to have full inside access to your machine if they want it, at any point as long as your machine is turned on. And that rootkit, because to be totally honest, that's what it really is, it's malware unless the source code is available to you, which would defeat the entire purpose. That rootkit could be potentially exploited by third parties, because Riot is not infallible and are certainly not able to guarantee total security. Now, Riot has come out and said that you can uninstall this root file at any time. However, if you do, the beta will no longer run. So it's a pretty black and white choice there. And on top of this, unconfirmed, and I say unconfirmed again because I haven't tested it myself, merely seen reports on Reddit or other forums, but unconfirmed reports suggest that when uninstalling the beta, but not specifically removing the vgk.sys file, it will remain on your PC even when the beta itself has been fully uninstalled. Uninstalling Valorant does not uninstall the Vanguard anti-cheat software, and it requires a completely separate action. So many players who use and then remove the beta for whatever reason will be stuck with a rootkit type malware file in their operating system that exists forever unless specifically deleted and could absolutely be exploited in the future. User data is a massive emerging industry. Anti-cheat this aggressive while simultaneously being this ineffectual compared to what was advertised is hard to defend as anything other than overly aggressive user data collection tactics. I can't prove it, I obviously can't see inside Riot Games or Tencent and know with total clarity what this has been designed in such a way to do, but if you compare the basic function of this anti-cheat versus all the others that are out there and the subsequent results, what possible justification is there for kernel level access? How about another angle entirely? Riot Games has had issues in the past with their own security, like when certain Filipino players discovered crypto mining malware in their League of Legends client. League of Legends never had Ring 0 root access to your operating system. And again, not an expert, but how much worse can things be and get when the depth to which the anti-cheat descends into your operating system reaches the absolute foundation while being always active even if the game is not, even after startup? For anyone who remembers the Greek myth regarding Helen of Troy, though a Trojan is a whole separate topic in cybersecurity, it will still sort of make sense. Imagine your computer to be Troy, the city, and the Valorant beta anti-cheat is a wooden horse outside your gates. Now, the Greeks are nowhere to be seen, and they probably aren't in the horse. In fact, they almost certainly aren't in the horse right now. But if you bring that bad boy into the city, other factions, not just the Greeks, can possibly teleport into the horse and destroy your entire city without you being able to react hardly at all. It's fair to say that all of this probably won't happen, but this thing has root access to your computer that is of a higher tier, just to put this in perspective right now, that is of a higher tier than even the default administrator role on Windows itself is allowed. That's not a small thing. There is more to this, such as the collection of data even when the game isn't running, which is demonstrated by certain users on Reddit, and I'm sure over time the story will evolve at a rapid rate, but at the end of the day, Valorant is not all rainbows and sunshine. It's got some serious issues that will need to be resolved before full release, and before customer trust is fully established. That's it for today, though. If you want to support, there are links down below, merch, Patreon, Twitter, and another YouTuber named AxialGT. Please subscribe to him, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.